Previous guest, first question.
Okay.
I'll turn it over to you.
So, and I'm guessing you want me to read it out loud. What effect did 9/11 have on your choice to serve and the trajectory of your service? Okay, so I was already out by then. So, kind of the process of me getting out.
How long had you been out on 9/11?
Months.
So
yes, so I'm brand new in the fire department. I was on probation in the fire department.
Okay.
Seattle Fire Department.
Okay.
So, and like that weighed heavy on me for a long, like 15, 16 years, that decision. Because you don't go in to do the stuff that I did in the service without wanting to do it for real, right? And I did some real stuff, like, you know, it was FID missions, but it was definitely in some dangerous places. You know, if you went off the base, you were in danger.
Right.
So, but, you know, so I was a hospital corpsman, so I was a medic in the SEAL teams. And at the time, you know, to screen for Dev Group, you basically had to do 2 platoons at the regular SEAL teams, and then screen. And then for medics at the time, you had to. So before you get to the SEAL team, you go, if you're a medic, you go through SF Medics course, their short course, which is a 6-month-long course. And then if you're going to be an independent duty corpsman at SEAL Team 6 or whatever, you have to go back through that whole thing and then the whole year-long process, right? And then at Dam Neck at the time, like if you were a corpsman, you had to wait for a medic spot to open up. And so there were 2 guys at SEAL Team 1 where I was at, 2 guys there. Matt Bourgeois was one of them. He's one of the guys that died early on in Afghanistan. But so Matt specifically was at SEAL Team 1. After going through that year-long long course, he was there for about 6 years waiting for a spot to open up. And then another guy who I did a platoon with, he was there for about 2.5 years waiting after that. So it was a long, if you're a medic wanting to go to Dam Neck, it was a long process. And I just didn't want to do that process, right? And so there were a lot of corpsmen in the teams at the time. And so for a little while, if you didn't want to do the corpsman thing, because I mean, even in my platoons, we always had 3 or 4 corpsmen, I was the dive rep. And then in squad operations, I was a 60 gunner, right? I carried the M60E4. Mark 43, I think they call it. So yeah, I rarely did corpsman stuff to begin with, and I just didn't really. I just wanted to be a shooter, and so because there was a lot of corpsmen, they had a program where if you wanted to switch your rate to bosun's mate or gunner's mate or whatever, you could do that. And so after my 2nd platoon, I put in to switch my rate. And they came back, they're like, we're not doing that program anymore. You're going to have to go through all this other stuff. And I'm like, you know, youthful anger. You're just like, F that. I'm out of here. You guys aren't working with me, right? So it was kind of youthful anger, getting an ego, getting out. And so that's what I did. But my wife and I got married. And I started testing. My whole family's cops. My grandfather was LAPD. My dad was a California Highway Patrolman. And so, yeah, that's the route I was going to take. And so I tested for the Highway Patrol. And then soon after that, Seattle Fire was testing and King County Sheriff. So I went up there on a weekend. They both had the tests like back to back. And
What was the draw to the Northwest for you?
that's where the job was. And because, when we got married in the Catholic Church, and before you get married in the Catholic Church, they make you go through a whole program on talking about how you want your family life to play out. And so my wife and I, she's way smarter than me, make a lot more money than me, but we decided there, like, all right, you're going to stay at home and I'm going to work. And so San Diego at the time was just too expensive.
Still is.
Yes. So we...
I don't know if it'll ever not be too expensive.
No, for sure. And we enjoy coming to visit. So we do quite a bit, especially because both our kids are down here. So I went up there to take the King County Sheriff test. It was the first one. I took that, and then I had a hotel room, and I was staying in the hotel room, and then Seattle Fire's test was the next day. So my end of active service was November 20th, 2020. And then I got hired December 20th, 2020, and I started fire department recruit school January 10th, 2021. And then I went through that. It lasted till like mid-April.
Prior to that, did you have touch points to Seattle or the Seattle area to where were
No.
you literally a fish out of water? In the sense of
I was a fish out of
didn't
water.
really know anybody.
Yeah, and I didn't know, like, I tried to go to like a small like community college here to learn some kind of fire sciences, and there's like all these kids in there that have been in all these fire science classes, and I'm just like, wow, like I'm way behind, right? But luckily at the time, like Seattle, like, the experiences you get through the service, and especially me being a medic, like they're like, we're actually looking for you. So the process for me into the fire service actually went really smooth and fast. And like I knew guys that I was going through fire science with that were up there taking the Seattle test with me. None of them got hired. But I was recruit number one. And I'm not a smart guy. So, it was just my resume I built. Yeah.
Something with you saying that just made me think about this. To your knowledge, and maybe it does happen and I just don't know about it, I would imagine a lot of the fire departments around the country, in a weird way, are they not actively recruiting to the military to draw the corpsmen as they're coming out?
Yeah, they go there and recruit, but they're not like, you need to come, you know what I'm saying? And then, a problem, you already know this, and I'm sure a lot of people have said it, but, you really have a hard time, especially from the special operations community, like talking about yourself.
But I mean, I guess what I'm getting at is there a known network where you, as you're coming towards your EAS,
okay,
and you're saying, hey, you know what, I want to transition, I want to go into a fire department as a medic, corpsman, whatever you want to refer to it as. Is there a email or a website?
So you just, it's on you to reach out.
Okay.
But that's how it played out for me. Okay. So like, I was at SEAL Team 1, I was working in the training cell department and teaching the 60 course. And one of the chiefs that I knew at Team 1 knew another chief at SEAL Team 3 who had a brother-in-law that worked for a Seattle Fire Department. And so I went over to SEAL Team 3. I talked to that chief, and his brother-in-law worked for Seattle Fire. His brother-in-law, his lieutenant at the firehouse he was at, worked in kind of recruiting. And so I got to talk to him. And so I talked to him. And, like when you're in the hiring process, the downtown is like, and I understand because they have a lot of people applying, but they're like, don't come down here and, we don't want to see you. You're just going through the process. And I'm like, screw that. I'm going down there. And so that's what I did. And I went and introduced myself, and I just put myself out there. And then that, I got some coaching on the interview process from that lieutenant, and like, he had so much clout in the fire department at the time like he pre-called the interviewers down at downtown and said, hey man, this is a guy that we want and he's a good dude and this is who he is. So I went in there. They're like, when we shut the door, they're like, hey, listen, just tell some sea stories. And I'm like, all right. And so that's what I did.
Well, that hammers home the importance of your network of people
100%.
Who know you, who know other people.
Uh-huh.
But like I said, I circle back to this, throwing out a business idea to somebody, because the corpsman and medic position in the military is so specific that you are valuable to any fire department, more than likely, across this country.
100%.
And being able to have a dedicated website that you could jump on as you're coming close to your transition and go, hey, I want to live in, I don't know, Lafayette, Louisiana.
Yeah.
Are there any fire departments hiring in that area?
Yes.
Specifically looking for what skill set I bring. And just one central spot where somebody could go and just look for it. Just throwing out a business idea.
Yeah. I mean, they also want people that are passionate, right? And so, it's incumbent upon you to kind of reach out to.
True.
I just say, don't be afraid to reach out and don't be afraid to talk about, your experiences. Because, on top of just the basic skills, they also want people that know how to shoot, move, and communicate, right? That's most important. I mean, you know how to show up on time, you know how to wear a uniform, you know a chain of command. But also, when the pressure's on, this guy knows how to cage that. Yeah.
One question I have before we pivot off and get into you as a young man and young boy growing up.
Uh-huh.
You talked about how you weren't out very long when 9/11 happened.
Yes.
It drove home I don't want to use the term missing out, but to a degree you felt like I wasn't where I should be based on.
Right.
And so we're going to hit the mental health component and that type of stuff. Do you think though, and this may even sound like a stupid question, had 9/11 not happened, would it not have driven it home as much to you?
Correct.
What you were missing?
Yes. So, because I had, all my friends were going to war, a lot of them were transitioning to Dam Neck and doing it for, the real stuff. And, again, if you're going to talk about the mental health component of it, I thought for sure this is what I was put on earth to do because I was pretty decent at it, right? And I was strong and I could take it and I knew or at least my ego told me this is you, man. So yeah, I was on probation. I was actually on duty September 10th. And then obviously it all played out in the morning.
This October 28th and 29th, the Military Officers Association of America is bringing together 3,000 voices, military leaders, warfighters, veterans, and families at National Harbor in Maryland for their inaugural conference, Total Force Plus. This isn't just another military conference. It's a mission to advance solutions for our military and veteran community, including leadership development, quality of life, military transition, and maximizing the veteran's experience. It's all on the table. This is where the next generation of military solutions will be tackled, at the first and only military conference where people outrank everything. And because the mission is so important, MOA is making attendance free for those who are currently serving, the spouses of those currently serving, and all federal employees within the DoD and VA. Secure your seat now, as tickets are limited and offered on a first-come, first-served basis. Visit TotalForcePlus.org to see if you qualify for your free ticket and to register for the conference.
So I was on duty September 10th, and 9/11 happened that morning. They held me over for upstaffing, and again, there's no cell phones back then, but I just knew my dudes are spinning up. And, they're going to be going to do the real thing. And it's I was literally shaking, uncontrollable shaking, vibrating, just son of a, I missed it. And she noticed, my wife noticed, and was just like, hey, if you want to go back in, I'll support you. And I'm like, my son's in the NICU. I got a brand new son. I got a brand new house I just bought. I'm in this job that could support us. I'm like, it would be it'd be one thing if I was still in, right? But it would have been a totally selfish decision at that point with what was happening to go back in. Totally selfish. And so I was like, I can't. I have to stay here and do this. This is my job now. So yeah, that's what it still weighed on me. Like I said, I talked to my buddies at Dam Neck, getting, just like, yeah, it weighed on me heavy, 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 heavy.
I've talked to quite a few who were very shortly out after 9/11, and a lot of them the same thing, man. And there's just that little twinge that always is back there in the back of your mind.
Uh-huh.
Should I have gone back in? Should I have gone back in?
Yeah.
We can't relive our lives, it just...
Again, looking back on it.
You had a bigger mission at that point in time.
100%. And I realized it. And so, yeah, I dove into that. And I put everything I had into that. Everything. Like, we talked before, we're going to send our kids to private Catholic school. And so I worked 2 and 3 jobs on top of the fire department to do that. And so at one point I did motion capture for video games, like the PlayStation 2, the SOCOM US Navy SEALs. I did all the motion capture for that. I pressure washed roads and sidewalks, and I had a pressure washing business. And then I taught SWAT team guys how to do their SWAT stuff in a maritime environment, maritime interdiction operations, like non-compliant, right? The Coast Guard does, compliant boardings, but we taught non-compliant, so with caving ladders, shadowing ships, helicopters with snipers, all that stuff. And so you only
Seattle PD SWAT, is that something they actively train?
They tried. They chickened out once they dumped their boat, but it's dangerous.
Yeah.
Okay. But if you do it correctly, it's less dangerous. And so they're just, again, the basics, right? I got you that this horseshoe collar and actuated vest is out of the way, but if you get knocked unconscious, which is easy to do, climbing a caving ladder in rough seas, or you need positive buoyancy. You're not going to have a ton of knives on you. You're not going to have a ton of ammo, right? That stuff weighs you down. You have to get up that ladder.
The problem is, though, you've now experienced working for city government as opposed to a military operation where that's your primary focus. That is so low on the frequency scale
100%.
Of anything that they're going to address. There's no way that they could regularly dedicate the budget to training.
Yes. And the reality is somebody that does it all the time is going to come in and do it.
Yeah.
Right. It's just a force multiplier. If you need somebody to detail the ship clear afterwards to help out, that knows how to move through these spaces, because a ship is totally complicated. It's not like kicking in a door at a single family residence. And so
it's like the airplane assault classes that they offer. And you look at, for most city agencies, they aren't doing it frequently.
So if I was a SWAT team commander, I would train regularly on a ship, because they're
assuming you're close to a port or water.
But you're in tight spaces, and it could open up to huge spaces, T hallways, U hallways, multiple doors that go from one hallway to the next, like totally complicated. And you got to stop a blue on blue, right? And so it's a lot of thinking. You have to be heads up. If you're a hall boss, like to be a hall boss in that, like if you can do that, you can do anything. So like if I had something like that available to me,
Right.
that's what I would do. Yes. And you train to fail.
Very true.
Train to fail. Yep. That's how you learn, right? That's why Elon is so good, because he just like, send it up. Let's fail and see where we failed. So he progresses fast because of that. Yeah.
But in his defense, though, he's got the budget behind him to fail repeatedly,
Yeah, so
or multiple times.
So does our government, man. They spend money on nonsense all the time.
Most of our city and county governments don't have that kind of budget, though.
For sure. Yeah.
Let's pivot back to you as a young boy. You mentioned California, your dad LAPD, your
grandfather LAPD,
dad Highway Patrol. So California, hometown for you?
Yeah. So I born in Van Nuys, and then we moved up to Elk Grove by Sacramento. My dad worked in Sacramento for a time, so I went through most of elementary school and middle school in Elk Grove, and then we moved up to Yreka, California, border of California and Oregon. And
my mom's in Weed.
Okay. Yeah. So cattle ranching and logging at the time. And so that's where I went to high school. I wasn't a sports guy. I worked. So like when we went up there, my dad bought 10 acres and we built a house on it. And it was right next to a huge cattle ranch, thousands and thousands of acres, like flat grasslands and mountains. And so, yeah, we'd take the cattle up in the mountains in the spring. They had summer up there, and then we bring them back down by horse.
Did your dad run cattle, or did you work for the ranch?
I just worked there going through high school. So I didn't even get into sports or anything. I would go to school and work.
Never a sports kid, like even as a young boy?
Yeah, young.
Oh, okay.
I played football and
Got
whatnot. But once I got up there, so I hauled hay every summer. And so that kind of like laid the groundwork for my, I guess, work ethic. And actually, I would say, for the things I did in my life, that was the deck plates. That taught me how to do it. Because when you're hauling hay, I would haul, so the truck I hauled on would hold 174 bales a load. They're all 2-wire bales, so you're doing it by hand with elevators and stuff like that. But yeah, you're picking it up out of the field. And I would haul whatever they baled up that day. So anywhere from 600 to 1,000 bales a day. And you had to get so if they sat overnight, and got damp, it would ruin them. They had mildew. So whatever they baled, you were picking up, and it didn't matter if it was 105 out or if it was hailing out, which the high desert, it does, right? So yeah, it didn't matter if you're tired. It didn't matter if you were you just did it. This is the mission. Do it. Period.
What was driving you as far as this need to, was it a need to work to make money or a need to work just to keep yourself occupied?
I like hard work. I liked it. I enjoyed it. My brother hauled with me, my middle brother. So I'm the oldest of 3 boys, all went in the Navy. My youngest brother is a Naval Academy graduate. My grandfather is in the Navy. My father was in the Navy. It's just a thing. So, yeah. So when I went into the Navy, it was just to go in and serve, just because that's what my family did. I didn't plan on going into special operations. I really didn't even know about it. I just went in to serve.
So you knew coming to the end of high school, the military was going to be your path at some point.
Yeah, for sure.
And did you already know it was going to be the Navy?
Yes. And, like I said, I barely got out of high school. I was one of those guys that, my highest level of math was pre-algebra. I had to take that twice. So I really wasn't into school, but I knew how to work hard. And so my dad was an electrician in the Navy, in I Seaman. And so that's what I wanted to do, and be on a ship like him and all this other stuff. And so when I took the ASVAB, I didn't test high enough for that. And they're like, you can be a corpsman, go work with the Marines. And actually, at first I wanted to be an Army Ranger. And so I had talked to the Army recruiter, and I was 17. So my dad had to sign off. And so
Was he for you breaking the family tradition of going towards the Army?
Well, and so, I signed up for Army infantry, airborne infantry, and, Ranger tryouts and all this other stuff. And he's like, nope, I ain't signing that. You're going to go learn a skill, a trade. I'm like, okay. And so, so they're like, you could be a corpsman, you can still wear camo, you can still carry a gun, right? You can work with the Marines. I'm like, all right, I'm doing that.
So your first stop to the recruiter was actually the Army recruiter? And you were into their pipeline to go infantry, airborne?
Yeah.
And then when your dad said no, you completely pivoted and went to the Navy?
Yeah. And so, but let me back up. So like when, the groundwork for my work ethic was hauling hay. And I hauled from like the end of May all the way through the end of August, 7 days a week, no matter what. And so, I guess that built the brain neurons that I needed, right? And so, I had like $43,000 in my bank account when I joined the Navy from hauling hay. I hauled a lot.
And didn't spend any of it.
No. And so like, after I left Wairika to join the Navy, like almost all the ranchers went to quarter-ton balers after that because they couldn't get kids to haul anymore. So I was like the last of the Mohicans of the hay haulers, So, I joined the Navy, and then I went to boot camp and hospital corpsman school. And boot camp, I knew 2 kids from Reno, Nevada. One was going immediately to BUD/S after hospital corpsman school. The other was going to CB rate.
What year did you go in?
92. Yeah. And so, I went to hospital corpsman school with the guy that was going to BUD/S, and we'd PT all the time. And then I had a high school friend that was also a corpsman that was in BUD/S actually at the time.
Were the teams even on your radar as far as something for you?
No, like I was going to the Marine Corps. And so that's what I did. I went to the Marine Corps at first. I went to Field Medical Service School at Camp Pendleton. And then they put me at Field Weapons Training Battalion where the Marine recruits would come through. About 3 miles away was Force Reconnaissance First Force. And I would see them training all the time and jumping out of airplanes and all this other kind of stuff. I'm like, that's what I want to do. And so one time at lunch, I just put my running shoes on, ran over there, and the first person I saw, a guy named Captain Protzeller. And I said, hey, sir, I'm, Hospitalman John Cizin, and this is what I want to do. How do I do it? And so he kind of gave me like this, because you have to get 100% on the Marine Corps PFT. So you basically go through a screening, and it's an all-day long screening. And the first part is you have to get 100% minimum on the Marine Corps PFT, and then you go from there. It's all like pool stuff, ocean stuff, obstacle course stuff, and then the last part of it is a 10-mile ruck run with a 60-pound pack. And there's a time limit. And so, being with the Marine recruits, they always hiked 18 miles a weekend. And so they did a 10-mile, what they call the Grim Reaper, right? It's a 10-mile ruck. They have 30-pound packs. And so that's what I started out with, was a 30-pound pack. So that was my training, right? So I would do usually corpsmen will ride in the truck, the safety vehicle, right? But I hiked with them. And so I'd do the 10-miler one day, and then the next day was like a 8-mile soft sand ruck for the recruits. And so I do both. I do 18 miles every weekend.
But you were doing this even before you even considered going over to ask to join Recon? Was this just a normal event for you?
Yeah, I was going to do it. And so, and then I worked up, got up to a 60-pound pack, and I was really good at humping a ruck, really good. So yeah, when it came, I took the force in dock and I made it. I did the ruck in plenty of time. Like I was one of the first ones in. And so, but things worked out the way they did. So I ended up getting orders from the Navy to Okinawa to field hospital, even though I had passed the force test. And, I'm just like, okay. And so, I get over there and talk to the CO, and the commanding officer, wherever you go, wants to what's your 5-year plan or whatever. And I'm like, not be here. I said, I just passed the force test. He's like, okay, well, and this guy's a big ultra marathon runner. And I had just gotten to Okinawa, and he's like, all right, well, if you come for a half marathon run with me at lunch and you can keep up with me, I'll send you over to force. I know the CO. I'm like, okay. And so the whole command knew about it. Everybody was out there, because that's how the CO kept command of his junior officers, was to crush him on runs, right? And so, we went out on a run. I just got to Okinawa, so I wasn't acclimated yet.
A little humid?
Very humid. And so we go out on a run, and about 6 miles, I'm just running with him. And about 6 miles in, he's like, young man, just go. And so I took off, and I beat him by 20 minutes or something. And so I came down with double lung pneumonia after that. But he did what he said, and he sent me over there. And so I was actually stationed at 3rd SOTG, Special Operations Training Group, but all the corpsmen at Force and SOTG were in the same. And so I, would supplement in doing force reconnaissance stuff. They sent me to Navy dive school. I went through a combat swimmer course through them, what they call a LAR-5 transition course for the closed circuit. So, so that was my first step. And then, I'm hearing from buddies of mine that my buddy made it through SEAL, my 2 buddies made it through SEAL training, and SEAL teams have all this money. I love the Marine Corps. They treated me very well. And it was actually some of my best times in the military is with the Marine Corps as a medic with them. And they gave me a lot of liberties. But, the teams had more money, more platforms to work with at the time. Not that way nowadays, but at the time, that's how it was. So the Marine Corps was really good with the gear and the stuff they worked with. But the teams had a lot more money. And so I was like, all right, well, I'm going to screen for buds. And so so nothing I've had done in the military was ever here's the front door. It was always the front door's closed. So I have to go check windows. I never did anything standard. I always had to find another way. And so, I screened for buds. They're like, well, you're still at E3 and you haven't tested for E4, so your higher tenure is going to be up, so we're denied.
How many years in are you at this point?
2.5. And so...
are you thinking beyond your first enlistment at this point? Are you...
Yeah. I mean, I knew if I went into the teams, that's where I would be.
Okay.
Right.
Because you had mentioned before that it was your initial step off into the military was just that service aspect. And then it sounded like your plan was long-term law enforcement. Coming out of high school, I mean.
Once I got into the teams, I'm like, this is it. Yeah. I was like, this is awesome. So, but anyhow, so I had to screen 2 or 3 times for buds just to get orders there. And I got orders there. And so I went to buds. And I showed up at class 203.
What year was that?
1995. So we started sometime mid-August, 1995. And, I was in pre-phase. I showed up about a month early, so I was in what they call 4th phase at the time. And so I went through that, classed up with 203. And, to make a long story short, I still read. I'm still a SEAL super fan. I still read the books and all that stuff. And so I read, these guys always write in there that, when they're going through buds, they lived meal to meal or day to day, you know, how do you eat an elephant one bite at a time? And like, that wasn't my experience at all. Like for me, it was, I was totally grateful to be there. I could not believe a farm boy from Yreka, California was actually in SEAL training. And because of the mindset I had built, honed, hey, like there was nothing that happened at Buds that was totally untenable for me. And so I was just like, all right, what's next? What's next? What's next? And so the whole torture part of it was just another day for me. So I was able to concentrate on keeping my body healthy and the pass-fail evolutions. So underwater knot tying, pool comp. So like on the weekends, you know, when we clean your rooms and all that stuff, I would spend the entire weekend, like, because you kind of knew what was coming up the next week, I would spend the entire weekend practicing in my head. Even though I didn't have the gear with me, I would do, you know, manipulative type, just so I had everything down to a T. And so I would pass. So like at the end of second phase, they give out first time, every time awards. I was always in like probably the top 6 swim pairs coming in. You know, I was always ahead of the middle of the pack in the run times. And so like, I just wasn't well known there because there's a, you know, a lot of dudes. And so they, at the end of second phase, they gave out the first time, every time award. And so there was 2 of us that had passed all the pass-fail events on the first time. And
I'd imagine that's quite unusual.
It is there was only 2 of us, and there were 30-something dudes in my class at the time. And so it was, one guy was a Naval Academy graduate named Jeff Eggers, and then he had went on to like Oxford or something like that. So he showed up at lieutenant junior grade at the time. So he was one of the first time, every time guys, and then John Cizin. And they're like, who the F is John Cizin? Who is this guy? Yeah.
The gray man who didn't try to be the gray man?
Total gray man, yeah. And so, yeah, I mean, and I was never a sports guy. Like I said, I just knew how to work. And so I was able to concentrate on what I needed. So, yeah, I went through on the first time. It was never like, oh, I'm suffering. Like, I had none of that. It was just like, all right, what's next?
Did the time that you spent with the Marines and the training that you got to do with them give you a little bit of a leg up going through Buds?
Yeah, because I had already went through Navy dive school. You know, I was familiar with open circuit and closed circuit diving. You know, that's why when I got to the platoon, I was essentially the dive rep because I had been doing it in, I guess, both platforms, right? So
I'm assuming you're able to make it through physically, no injuries or anything?
Yep. I took care of myself. And, you know, even though I could run faster, or I just very careful about where I was placing my feet. Right. So, yeah, that was my plan, and I executed the plan. Yeah.
At that time, was it still STT or SQT in the teams for you?
STT, and it was done at the team. It was not it wasn't like all your STT training where you actually learn how to be a SEAL was done at your team. And so it wasn't like your class moves on to this next big event. It was you're at your team, and your team's training cell runs a cycle. And actually, to be pinned with your trident, you actually had to be in a platoon for 6 months on top of going through STT. So you weren't like given a trident because you went through STT. Like, you actually had to prove yourself at a platoon on the platoon level for them to say, okay, this guy's ready to go through the board.
So did you basically then graduate after second phase and get
No.
sent to a team?
We went through third phase, all that. And then I went through the 6-month SF medics course, and then I got assigned to SEAL Team 1. I showed up. We waited.
Did you want a West Coast team?
Yes. All my class went to the East Coast pretty much. But I love the West Coast. And so really didn't have any idea of how each team was, because each team was different. So, if you ask me, I lucked out getting to SEAL Team 1. SEAL Team 3 at the time was an awesome place to be too. But SEAL Team 1's training cell and their leadership was excellent. So wherever we deployed, like, we were on our game.
You showed up there 96?
Yeah. And so we went through STT, and the benefit of doing it in-house like that, like the platoons and the senior leadership get to see how you perform in STT. And so they pick you out. And so you're put into a swim pair with another guy. My guy was Casey McKinney. He still lives by me. Like I'm closer to him than my own brothers at this point, still. But yeah, we showed up to SEAL Team 1. We went through Buzz together, SM Medics course, STT. We're swim pair number 7, and they rank you as you're going through STT. And then that's how they pick the platoons that are already platooned up or getting ready to platoon up. That's how they pick their new guys, was how did you perform in STT? If you performed well, you're going to get in a platoon right away. If you didn't perform well, you're going to wait, or you're not going to be here anymore. So, Casey and I were the first swim pair picked to go. So I got into a platoon right away, Foxtrot platoon. They were in a workup with Alpha platoon, I think it was.
Did SQT come about, or the change in the fact that you don't do it at the platoon anymore because of the variance in the way each platoon was training?
I think, it was just like special operations changes all the time.
Because I can see it as a benefit or a plus.
For sure.
If the team is handling the training, when you get there, you just learn how that team operates.
Uh-huh.
But the thing is, if you leave that team and go to another one and they operate even slightly differently.
For sure. What's the mission set, right? So it was changing. Like, we were going from a small Navy dedicated command to this big SOCOM umbrella, right? Like, we need to change the way we work up and deploy. Like, we're not gonna just send these small platoons out everywhere. We're gonna deploy as a task unit now, and this whole task unit's gonna go, and you're gonna have a task force to do these briefings and all this other stuff. It's not just on you now. So things are changing. They're ever evolving, and that's okay. It's just the way it is. And so you just shoot, move, and communicate with whatever battle space you have in front of you. That's how you do it.
Are you into your second enlistment when you get to the teams, or are you still in your first?
At the tail end of my first. And so I can't remember where I re-enlisted, but I think I was at SF Medics course when I re-enlisted.
But bottom line, at this point in your mind, this is going to be your career.
Yeah.
In your mind.
Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, the plan was to do 2 platoons and then screen for green team. That was the plan. And not be a corpsman. So I worked really hard at the M60. Like, you're not just an automatic weaponsman, especially in that small of a unit. Like, you're literally the door out of a bad situation. So you have to be cognizant of where you are. You have to be in communication with the boss and the radio man. Like, where are we going? Like, all right, so I'm going to lay down some fire here so everybody else could get out of here. So it's not just you're carrying a heavy weapon with a lot of ammo. Like, if you do it right, you can be highly, highly effective and an asset. And so I was really into it. Technically, because I was a corpsman, I should have been carrying an M4 and walking rear security with my medical gear. But I made sure I was really good at it. And I had a great, sea daddy, quote unquote, that taught me how to be good at it. His name's Chris Good. And he was eventually a Master Chief of SEAL Team 1. But Chris Good was my sea daddy, and that guy taught me everything. And he was really good at it. And so, yeah.
But you were still the corpsman also.
Yeah, technically. I mean, we always had I guess administratively I did some corpsman stuff, but I mean, it's more important to get out of there. Like, even if you have somebody wounded, you're going to get them out of there, but it's important to have somebody good. So in my second platoon, my lieutenant wanted me to walk rear security with an M4. And first of all, picking up an M4 after you carry a 60 is just like, what do you want me to do with this thing, man? So yeah, I did.
They're just as heavy. They weigh the same.
Yeah. Yeah. I felt naked. So they put some new guys at the 60 position. And so one time we were out in the desert doing immediate action drills for the XO, a SEAL Team 1 at the time. And these guys that they had on the 60 just were not awesome at it. And so I go to my lieutenant. I'm like, listen, man, just for one iteration, give me that 60. He's like, all right. Because the XO was on his ass because the 60 gunners they had weren't performing well. So I'm just like, just one time, just give it to me. And so, yeah, man, I like turned it on. And at the end, the XO went up to my lieutenant and said, that's your 60 gunner. He's like, okay. So I got my 60 back. Yeah.
Now, you've mentioned the process for Dam Neck, and that got onto your radar.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a procedure and a process, time-wise.
Uh-huh.
And that kind of soured your...
For a medic, right, yes.
So can you explain the whole process exactly?
Yeah.
What kind of happened and what didn't happen?
If you screen positive, right, so if you go through the long course, which is a year long, you're considered an independent duty corpsman. So you're operating under doctors' licenses, but you have a lot more leeway because you have a lot more training, right? And that's what was required at Dam Neck at the time.
Would you be equal to like a PA on the civilian side?
No.
Okay.
But
close?
I mean, pretty close, yes. And so, yeah, so like I said, like even on the platoon level, like, because you have so many aspects to your job, you need to have guys in those positions to be more experts at it. And so, like, I was the diving rep. Like, I went through closed circuit repair school, and like I did on the diving side of the platoon functions, right? And then I carried the 60, and I was a breacher and all this other stuff. And so I just never did a lot of corpsman stuff. And I didn't like it particularly. And so, yeah, I did not want to continuing, especially if there was not a war going on. I just didn't want to sit around at a regular team doing, miles and miles on a rubber boat and, So, but again, like, obviously, like, ego was getting the better of me at the time, which, if I had just stayed humble, my mind probably wouldn't have gone there, but it did. And it just worked out the way it worked out. I'm okay with it now. I've transitioned away from that.
What was that transition like for you, though, to understand that you were going to turn it off and get out?
I didn't know what to expect. I had heard, like, the fire department, like, you're going to be going into, again, small squad operations, essentially. And
I guess I'd want to step back. How much longer did you have on your enlistment before you were going to be getting out? So where you had the time to just kind of think about, like, know that, hey, here's the end of my ride.
I had about 8 months.
Okay.
So, like, we're going to get married. My wife and I are going to get married, which we did. And then I worked in training cell. I taught the 60 course. I would cover dives as a corpsman sometime. And so it's not like I wasn't good at the corpsman stuff. Like covering a dive at one point. There was a guy that, you can embolize in 3 feet of water. And so, you can either get decompression sickness or you can get air gas embolism. Decompression sickness, you kind of have to work through it. You might have some neurological stuff going on. Embolizing, like you're going out of this world. So I recognized some neurological stuff in a guy coming off of a dive. And, had I not been there and actually knew what I was doing, he would have died. And so, immediately I threw him in the van, did my corpsman stuff on the way there. And, literally, as soon as we showed up to the decompression chamber, his whole left side went numb, gonzo. And so luckily, I did my job. And, we pressed him and went on about his business.
I have no doubt that you were still doing your job. How was your mental space, though, in those last 8 months?
I was looking forward to it, because once I make my mind up, I just go. And so, all right, the Navy's not going to work with me. I'm going to go do something else. And it was, getting out is, and so this will play out in our conversation with the mental health stuff. But I was excited to get out. I was going to do something new. I was going to learn something new. And, I always have it in my head that I'm going to pass. So there's just no doubt. And, I was just going through the steps. But I was excited about it. I was excited to get out and go do something new. I was going to get into another job where it's small squad operations. We're going to be quote unquote family.
Hey, real quick. Let's talk surfing and bourbon. The Pendleton Surf Club's all-military surf contest is happening October 9th through the 12th at Church Surf Break on Camp Pendleton. Whether you ride a longboard or a shortboard, if you're active duty, a veteran, or a military spouse, this is your chance to paddle out, compete, and connect. It's 4 days of nonstop action, pro-level judging, raffles, giveaways, and shared stoke with your crew on the sand. Your registration includes meals, contest swag, and the chance to take home the trophy. Spots are limited, and registration closes October 1st, so secure your place now at PendletonSurfClub.com. And for those whose ears perked up when I said bourbon, Pendleton Surf Club has released Board Shack Bourbon, crafted to celebrate the stories, the service, and the surf. Every penny from every bottle sold funds the event and supports the surfers. So even if you don't surf, you can support the event and enjoy some good bourbon. Grab your board, get your bottle, and help give back to military members and veterans. Go check out PendletonSurfClub.com.
And it was that way, but it was nowhere near the SEAL team level. So that was kind of a disappointment. And even
was it hard to keep the ego in check? Because I'm assuming you had to go to a fire academy.
No, I never had an ego. I always wanted to be the top of the class. And so, and I'm not a smart dude, so I would study extra hard and I would stay after. I'd pack just like I did through BUDS. I would stay late and practice manipulative stuff. And so, none of that changed. And, we had a new house. And so I had to put in all the sprinklers. I had to put in the grass. I had to do all the landscaping. I had to do all this stuff, right? So I had a lot going on. And I was learning this job, getting familiar with it. And, I was the first firehouse I started out at was kind of a slower firehouse. But because of my performance, the busier firehouses, they were recruiting me. And so, I went to a super busy station, learning that. A lot of fires, a lot of mayhem.
How long did you have between getting out of the Navy and starting the academy? Fire academy?
A month and a half.
How was that month for you? Once you were actually out and you're now a civilian, even though you did have something else on the horizon. No,
it was fine. I mean, obviously I missed my dudes, but I had a next part of life that I actually was looking forward to. I was excited about it.
So when you talked earlier about the armor coming off, did that happen because of 9/11?
No. So, like I said, like, even though I had a hard time with it, I still dove head first. That's how I do stuff. I don't like dip my toe in the water. I dive head first into everything. And so that's what I did with the fire department and family life. And so, you know, my kids will probably complain about it, but they're good citizens now. So I tried to learn and do well at everything. And so like when I got there, their helmets and turnout gear were totally out of compliance. Like you'd have one guy going into a fire that had 17-year-old gear, where right next to another guy that had brand new gear. That gear is going to take that heat differently. So to me, going into even like you think a big city like Seattle was like
Squared away,
and they weren't, and it bothered me. And so, yeah, man, I worked hard to get them brand new bunkers and helmets. Took a lot of my time. I had to step on some toes, so there's sure a lot of people in there that either like me or did not like me, but this is what the code says, and you are not in code. So I held them to that. And then, you know, like firefighting operations, it was, you know, when you're fighting fire in single family residences, it's just like doing SWAT stuff in single family. It's just like another day. Well, they're building this city up to be high density, and so firefighting needs to change, right? It needs to go to a more coordinated event. So it's essentially occupancy-based firefighting. We're going to this occupancy. This is what the first 2 engines and trucks do, or the first 3 engines and first 2 trucks do, and this is what you do every time at this kind of structure. They didn't have that before, so I worked with a lot of dudes that were passionate with it, and we got occupancy-based firefighting put into practice. So I was never like a guy that was just another warm ass on a seat. Like I always had to be involved, making stuff better, more efficient, right? Like it was important to me to create that atmosphere.
Now we're talking 20 years ago.
Yeah, like, well, 25 probably.
And granted, Seattle's a big city, but was a lot of the mindset in the not being progressive in staying on top of things just because they hadn't really experienced anything majorly negative to really kind of force that? Because, for instance, you mentioned a guy's running in turnouts that are old, 17 years, whatever it was. Was he just okay with it?
They were okay with it. And then on top of that, yes, they had incidences that hurt firemen, that killed firemen. Again, I shoot, move, and communicate with whatever battle space I have in front of me. So I pushed it, man. And I wanted to have a real functioning big city fire department. That was important to me. And it was important to a lot of guys that were there. And probably like every organization, you have people that are just there, and then you have people that steer the ship.
Because I think back to when I came into law enforcement in the early 90s. Bulletproof vests. I mean, I graduated the academy in 92.
Mm-hmm.
I can't tell you a time that I didn't put a uniform on and put a vest on.
Yeah.
It just was part of it.
Yeah.
But there were old salts that I worked with. Man, in the summertime, I'm taking out the back panel. It's too hot.
Yeah.
If I'm going to get shot, I'm not going to get shot in the back. Yeah, it was just the mindset, that slow mindset shift of the old salts wearing a seatbelt all the time.
Yep.
You know, they just didn't do it.
So it's all a risk-benefit analysis, right? So like back when you didn't have all this super awesome firefighting gear and guys were wearing leather helmets and a jacket and some tall boots, they had to know how to fight fire
differently,
efficiently and effectively. So there is a good and a bad to having awesome equipment, right? Like The bad is you lose those skills because you're just going in and putting wet stuff on red stuff, right? You're not trying to control the fire, or, but there is a way to do it. And we had lost those skills in Seattle. And so, there was a lot of guys that took the initiative themselves, firemen, lieutenants, captains, chiefs, to say, hey, man, we're going to go back to doing this for real because we're a professional organization. And luckily, the leadership at the time was into it. And so, we'd get some pushback, but for the most part, they're like, go forth, let's do this. And so we did it. And even like the driver spots, like it was just like, oh, who's the next senior guy? Not whether you're proficient in it or can handle that kind of stress. It was who's the next senior guy. Well, that isn't the reality of pumping water at a huge fire when you have 4 to 6 hose lines coming off your engine, and you got to get a supply. You got all these hose lines that are at different pressures because they're different size hose lines. What's the truck doing? Windows are cracking across the street. It's so hot. Like, I have to get water to my guys right now or they're going to burn. There are other guys driving this train, but to get like a driver training program put into place we're going to be professional about this because it's a safety check and, the basics.
Were you making a conscious effort to move away from the medic aspect and just be more of a firefighter?
At the time, like I would tell you, like my ego was just like, yes, I was good at it, but like my bedside manner stinks, right? I just am a knuckle dragger. And so because my bedside manner stunk, again, that's good and bad, right? Like if you have too much of a heart for this, you're going to get sucked into whatever you're doing. Whereas if you're just, I don't want to say going through the motions, but if you could separate yourself, you could be more effective. So, yeah, I mean, I could have been a medic, but I just didn't. My focus was pumping, being a pump operator. Like, I really enjoyed that.
Did you have a career trajectory that you wanted to try to achieve? Were you thinking at that time?
Nope. Just doing what I was doing, being a driver. Again, like, do you want to transition into the brain stuff?
I'll let you drive the train as far as how you want to progress.
Okay.
Into
like, so whenever I talk to people, I always try to put stuff into like human language. Okay. And especially human language for us. You're going into mayhem, right? So you have to have some armor, right? So you have this full suit of armor when you start. Right. And the reality is 99% of the calls you go on bounce right off of that armor. But for some reason or another, sometimes things get through and it causes damage to that armor and it exposes you and you feel pain. And so.
But in your defense also, you already brought a lot to the table from your time in the military.
100% TBIs. Okay, so when I got out of the service, TBI wasn't even a thing. I don't even remember it being a thing until Junior Seau committed suicide. And then once that happened, we started getting troops coming back from Iraq and Afghanistan committing suicide. People are like, what is going on? Especially in the special operations community. They're like, what's going on? And so, yeah, like they started sending brains to that brain clinic in Boston. And they're like, so like within the special operations community, they're like, I don't want to say this. So like, they're like, oh, this is CTE, right? Like the football players get. And then they started getting brains and they're like, oh, this isn't CTE. These guys' hypothalamus is damaged and their neural pathways are broken and whatnot. So, so for me, like when I got out, I was excited and busy, right? So
As long as you could go 100 miles an hour, you're okay.
I was okay. And so it was like, I don't know, probably 3 or 4 years after I got out of the service and was in the fire department that I actually like took a breath. So it was like, you know, I had stuff going on with the house, the family. I had a brand new family. We had 2 kids, and I was working 3 jobs. And so it was probably 4 or 5 years till I like felt comfortable in the fire department. Like I knew what I was doing. Everything was taken care of at home. So that was about the first time that I took a breath. It was probably around 2005, 2006. And I noticed as soon as I took a breath, like all my injuries from the service, physical injuries, like I could feel them now. And like I said, didn't even have the mental health stuff in my head, but I knew something was wrong because, like, even though I had a brand new house, and I had everything taken care of, like I would come home and just whenever I was home, I would just sit on the couch like a zombie, like just trying not to think. And, you know, then like I didn't know how to prioritize stuff anymore. I didn't know how to shoot, move, and communicate. Like it wasn't happening. And that wasn't me. And I didn't know why. And honestly, like TBIs and PTSD stuff was not even on my brain. It was just like something is wrong. And I didn't know what. And so, you know, obviously I had like a mild case of depression going on. Like I'd be at home. I knew I had all these chores stacking up. And, but I just couldn't get to them because I didn't know how to tackle them. It was too much for me to try and tackle them. So I just let them pile up. And then soon it's just like, oh, this house is a piece of shit. You know, like we need to move out of here. Even though it was a beautiful house, like the shit I had going on in my head was not reality. And I was struggling. And so, and my body, like I was in a parachute accident, like every single disc in my C-spine was all pushed out to the right, like 4 or 5 sections in my thoracic spine and my entire lumbar spine. So I had all these neurological stuff going on.
Was this from when you were still in the military? Or?
Yeah, from free fall parachute stuff. So like there were times like I couldn't even get out of bed. She'd have to like log roll me out of bed, help me put my pants on, help me tie my shoes. And then I'd get in the car and go to work, right? And
I'm good to go.
Yeah. So,
do you spend time in the hospital behind that injury?
Mm-mm. I would go in because I was a corpsman. Like they wanted to do surgery on me, but I'm like, nope. And so I would go in, they would put me in traction, put me in ice, do E-stim on me, all this other stuff. And so I would just go in when I had time. I knew the doctor. I'm like, hey man, let's just try to get, I got stuff I got to do.
Hard landing or hard exit?
Both. Not exit. It was hard opening and hard landing. Like folded me in half backwards.
Ooh.
So it was doing elevator jumps in a helicopter, quick pack jobs. And, you know, I wasn't an expert at it at the time. You know, I still wasn't when I got out in reality. But yeah, like everybody else was under canopy. I was supposed to be under canopy. I had a hard burble. Like it was not coming out of my chute. I was trying to beat it out, like turning my body everywhere. And so I'm like, damn, I'm going to have to cut this thing away. And so right before this, a guy from SEAL Team 5 kind of had the same scenario. And when he went to cut away, his main and reserve wrapped together and he fell. And so I had that in my head. I wanted to be in a position to where I could see my main go away. And so that's what I did. And so as soon as I turned hard like that, my main came out and it opened like boom, right away. It wasn't like this pleasant unfolding. It was just like, boom. And it whipped me around, folded me in half backwards. I kicked the back of my helmet. And so like, I was not unconscious or anything, but it definitely rung my bell. And so I just remember like, I knew what I had to do, like the process on a good landing, but like my body just wasn't doing what was going through my head. And so, yeah, I hit the ground hard.
Break anything?
I don't know. I would not let them, I didn't want to know. And so because I was a corpsman, I didn't have to be like, oh yeah, take care of me. I was like, all right, I'm going to take care of myself.
I mean, like outside of your back, what maybe I broke? Like obviously no leg, ankle.
I probably had some microfractures in my back, to be honest, and maybe my hips. I was in pain, a lot of pain, but I was in a platoon and I wanted to continue on with that platoon. And so I just did what I had to do. I can do pain.
How's the back today?
Fine, because I take care of myself. Yeah. We've been eating like a paleo type diet since 2011, and I had to because I had to walk. Like it was totally untenable what was going on. So yeah, so back in around 2005. So recently I was hearing some gal that wrote a mental health book with this ex CAG guy, Delta Force guy. And, she's saying that the human body and brain are really good at adapting to whatever you put in front of it. It's going to adapt to it. So whatever kind of mayhem's going on, right? And then eventually, like, it learns like, oh, this mayhem's normal. So this is our operating space. And so your brain adapts to that mayhem. And then when you go into the civilian side and that mayhem's kind of gone, your brain's like, I need food. I'm starving here, right? So that kind of stuff makes sense to me. And so it just makes total sense. As soon as I took a break and took a breath, my body's like, what are you doing, man? I need food. And so even though by that point in the fire department, I had at least 3 incidences by then that damaged the armor. And so, I had that going on, plus I'm sure TBIs, just my brain was not braining. And then my kids' birthdays are they're 2 years apart, but they're August 30th and August 29th. And so we would always throw these big parties for them. They went to a small Catholic school, and so everybody knew everybody all throughout the grades. Like everybody showed up to everybody's parties. So we had a lot of social events. And I remember at the team, like I was essentially the bartender whenever we'd have parties. Like I kept the party going, right? Like I was a big social guy. And then, so I remember specifically is at one of our parties for our kids, there were a ton of people around. I was making some drinks. And then at some point,
there are a lot of veteran and first responder owned coffee companies out there. Trident Coffee is one of them, but they're different. They're cold brew experts, and their beans are roasted for cold brew optimization. But for those of you who love hot coffee, this is a benefit to you as well. Hot or cold, their coffees taste amazing without the bitterness. Their instant cold brew is infused with powerful ingredients for performance, focus, and wellness, including antioxidants and electrolytes, ensuring smooth, steady energy with no jitters and no crashes. This isn't just coffee, it's fuel for your brain and your body. Whatever your coffee needs, Trident has you covered. From a variety of great tasting roasted beans to their instant cold brew and nitro cold brew in a can for when you're on the go. However you drink it, Trident Coffee is coffee upgraded. Get yours now at tridentcoffee.com and use the promo code TDP15 for 15% off your purchase.
And sometimes it was within a half hour, sometimes it was within 2 hours. It didn't know. But at some point, my brain was like, you have to get out of here right now. You have to go or you're going to die. And so I was like, what is going on? And so like I literally had to go into a room, close the door where it was quiet, and just be in quiet. There was too much going on for me to comprehend. And I was in danger. And so I remember like at the party, like my wife and I, we both really didn't know what was going on. And so, you know, she would come in and she's like, we've got a party full of people here. You're being unsocial. This isn't cool. Like, I'm just like, I don't know why. I can't tell you why, but I have to be in quiet right now. I have to. So like, you know, obviously I was a part of the VA system. And so, you know, that's when I started going into the VA. And I'm like, listen, doc, like my body is in pain. Something is going on with my brain. I don't know what, but something's off. This is not me. And so, you know, VA, they're like, here's some morphine and some Valium. We really want to put you on a pain schedule. I'm like, where they send you it in the mail monthly. I'm like, no, man, I got kids at home and I love this stuff too much. So I'm like, I had to be responsible. So I said, let me just call you if I need it. Can we do that? And so like after a while, you know, I went on to Dilaudid after that, and you know, I had a near OD one time. But it not just like made the body pain I could take pain, like I said, but it allowed me to think again, and I could prioritize things, and I could move through the evolution of a project, shoot, move, and communicate again. Like it made my brain work. So that's kind of how that played out. So I did that like religiously until from probably 2005, 2006, all the way to about 2012. And then one day I was on the mountain with my buddy Casey that I went through LS teams with and all that. And before we started out, I took a dose. And then when we got up to the top of the mountain, it was like a big wind and rainstorm. So we got in our tents. And to shelter in place. And so I took another dose way before I should have. And yeah, I didn't wake up for like 24 hours. And Casey had to babysit me, keep me going. And so, yeah, we got off the mountain and kind of told her about it, my wife. And, you know, him and my wife were like, you're not doing that no more. I'm like, okay, what's next? And so we got on a paleo diet, went like within 3 months, I was able to get out of bed on my own, put my shoes on, able to move like a human. Got into CrossFit.
I was going to ask, through all of this, are you still working out regularly? Before that?
Yeah, what I could, but I was in pain, brain pain and body pain. And then started CrossFitting, then started teaching CrossFitting, and like I was doing really good. And then another event in the fire department, it was, you know, I was riding the tailboard on overtime, and this is the third time this happened. And so, you know, I crawling into a fire, I find a body, I pull the body out in the hallway. And so I just remember laying in the hallway with this fucking dead guy on me, and I'm just like, I don't want to take my mask off. As soon as I take my mask off, it's going to get in my nose. I'm going to smell it for weeks. It's all over my gear. Eventually, once I got outside, I took my mask off. I'm like, I'm not doing this no more. So that was another hit to the armor, right? And so I started drinking because I couldn't do opioids anymore. So I started drinking red wine. And I was drinking 1.5 to 2 bottles a day every day that I was off of work.
Impressive, but not impressive.
Yeah. And so, but I was still working out, still eating paleo, but I gained probably 15 pounds just drinking. And I was getting unhealthy again. And right about that time, the driver spot opened up at my firehouse. And I was like, all right, I'm going to do this. So I stopped drinking and I put everything I had into becoming a driver. I was no longer riding it. I didn't have to go into fires anymore. I didn't have to drag dead people out. I didn't have to, like, even on medical calls, I didn't have to go in if I didn't want to or it wasn't necessary. And later on, you'll see there's good and bad to that. So, yeah. So I was good again. I was back down weight. I was healthy. That's when I started meditating. I started doing breath work. I started getting into, like.
Did you find that on your own, or did somebody point you in that
No,
direction?
I had like my buddies that had been dealing with them themselves. So like, even around that point, I was just so reluctant to admit that I had TBIs and like my brain wasn't. So actually, there was a guy that was in the fire department with me, and he was a SEAL team lieutenant, Naval Academy smart dude. And even probably back around 2009, he's like, hey, man, I know there's something wrong with you. You have to go get checked out. And you know me, like don't know me, but I was like, no, they're going to take my guns and right. And then a guy from my buds class, Dave Collins, happy guy all the time. Did a 20-year career. He went to Iraq and Afghanistan, but he was never like in a IED. He was never exposed to any of that stuff. But it was just through training. And that guy committed suicide. 2 girls at home or something like that. Wife donated his brain to a brain clinic in Boston, and dude had the same injuries. Their hypothalamus, neural pathways busted apart. So not only is your body not producing the hormones because your hypothalamus is busted, your body's not producing the hormones that you need to function normally. But these neural pathways, like to even just think, aren't doing their thing. And so, that's what was going on with me. And
in your mind, was he one of those guys that was squared away?
Dave was always had like, I was just looking at a picture of him. Like, so I have this picture of us doing our final Admiral's PT and buds. And everybody just has this serious look on their face except Dave. Dave's smiling, always smiling. Happy dude, man. And so it was just like, what?
The reason why I asked that is because I had another guest who went the same route you did. He went SEAL Teams, fire service, and was dealing with some issues. It was finally it was the culmination of everything, but the job was the kind of the final straw.
Yep.
To where he realized, okay, I'm having some issues.
Yep.
And then a former SEAL team buddy of his, who in his mind was the SEAL.
Yep.
Squared away.
Yes. Always. You have those guys.
Took his life. And he's like, if that guy took his life.
We had a master chief. He was a master chief of Team 1, but when I was in, he basically ran the sniper course. His name is escaping me right now, but that dude was a SEAL. Like, mustachio, tough guy, square, like always level-headed, could talk to anybody on their level. Chain of command, rank dudes, like Frogman. And yeah, he retired, and even like 10 years later, he committed suicide, 10 years after he got out. So it's just like, and he had a family, and so I'll get to that because this isn't it. yeah, so I went I was doing good for a while. I was learning to meditate and trying to just take care of myself. And then I did that from like 2017. I started the driver stuff, and then obviously 2020 COVID, and so COVID was awesome at first for us because nobody wanted nasty firemen in their house, and so it was actually pretty quiet. And then but they had closed schools and all that stuff. And then like during the summertime, the kids were starting to get bored and starting to have little clandestine parties. And that's about the time when, their whatever their party drugs were being mixed with fentanyl. So we had a lot of dead kids. And, like the guys on the tailboard and the officer in there doing their thing. Well, my job is to run logistics as the driver. So I'm bringing them equipment. And then when parents are showing up, I'm trying to keep the parents back and trying to diffuse the situation. And I remember by the end of the summer, I was just sitting on the tailboard, and we just got done at one of those party scenes where the kid's dead, mom and sister are crying their eyes out. And I remember just sitting on the tailboard, just like, and I remember specifically like, how do those chaplains in the military do it? How do they go to house to house to house and tell somebody their loved one isn't coming home? Like, so obviously I was going down the path here, right? So then when they didn't open up schools again in the fall, that's when kids started committing suicide. And so, like, I would hear about it as I was coming on shift. Guys went to one, or like we'd be second in engine to this, possible that they call a Med 7. So you're getting 2 engines and a medic unit and a battalion chief, right? So we were like second in engine on a lot of them. So we never like had gone in as the first crew. And then late October, it was a Sunday. So, my firehouse was in a real nice neighborhood, rich people. And we got a call at 8 o'clock in the morning. And so we go blazing up there, nice house. Mom and dad were up already cooking breakfast. You could smell it. Something they probably did every Sunday morning. So, we get there, and my crew goes in immediately. The lieutenant goes in, and I'm gathering gear like I always do. I go in. I smell the food. Mom and dad are falling apart in the kitchen. And I don't think the cops were there yet. And so I had gear I had to get to them, so I go down the hallway, and as soon as I stand in the doorway, and done. Like, I'm in uncharted territory here. I have no idea what to do. I don't even know who I am anymore. How am I not this guy? And I didn't know. Yeah, I knew L&I was going to ask me about it. I'd have to first to get on L&I, you got to write about it over and over and over. And I did not have the mental capacity to do that. I can't even believe I'm still hurting over this stuff.
For those that don't know, what's L&I?
Labor and industry. They're awesome with musculoskeletal injuries, but their job is to get you back to work. PTSD, or whatever you want to call it, is not a musculoskeletal injury. When your brain's working, you can fill out all the paperwork you want, right? And you can go through their stupid process. But you can't when your brain's not braining. And I didn't have the emotional capacity or the cognitive function to do that. And so I remember like a week later, I almost have no memory of right afterwards. And so at some point I filled out a precautionary form for L&I just to say, hey, this happened. And it was so shocking, whatever I wrote. I don't even know what I wrote, but it was so shocking to the disability officer. He's like, hey, bro, I'm going to put you automatically on what they call no time loss. So I talked to a friend of mine. He was a former Marine, went through the full career in the fire department. His son was a Marine, died in Afghanistan. So this dude knew all my armor fell off at once. He knew that. So I trusted him. And I said, hey, Mike, something life-changing happened to me. I need to talk to you about it, and I need to figure something out. And so I met him for breakfast about a week after this incident happened. And man, that was 6 years ago or something that happened. Still getting me. So yeah, I met him for breakfast. I'm like, hey, like, I can't do the L&I route. What do you recommend? He's like, well, I recommend L&I. But if you can't do it, I just use your sick leave and like once or twice a month, go on sick leave so you have a week or so off and just rest your brain. And I would recommend going to see this person and this person because they specialize in treating first responders. That's what I did. I would take a shift or two odd, work, and then take a break. And over time, like, you know, January, February, March, like my cognitive function started slipping, like big time. Like I almost became like a lip reader. Like I had to focus 100%. If I didn't, like I just wasn't even comprehending. And then on top of that, like my word finding ability started going. And so like I would know in my head what I wanted to say to you. But if I couldn't think of the word within like 3 or 4 seconds, I would completely lose my train of thought. It would go away. And I didn't even know where I was. So yeah, my cognitive ability started slipping as the months went on. Even with all that rest and recovery, nothing, not only was it not getting better, it was getting worse. And so my wife, who's lived with me for many years, actually got worried. And she's like, we're going to the VA. I'm taking you in. I'm like, okay, something's wrong here. And so we go in and the doctor's just like, could tell immediately something was wrong, and just from my cognitive function. And she's like, we have got to get you because they thought I had a brain bleed or some kind of mass growing on my brain. So we got to get you into a CT scan now, and then we're going to send you to the TBI clinic. Basically, long story short, it was totally a wild and inconclusive exam. And so they're like, this is severe PTSD. It's not TBI, so we're going to recommend you for the PTSD clinic. And the PTSD clinic for the VA called me and said, hey, man, we're going to put you in this program, but we don't have room for you until like February the 11th of next year. And I'm just like, I'm getting fired. I'm losing my medical. I'm losing everything. I don't have a paycheck. I can't go get another job. She couldn't go get a job because I couldn't be trusted to be alive when she got home. That sent me spinning. And so it moved from a situation that was, you know, fairly untenable into I don't want to be here no more. And but my daughter was still at home. My son was in college at the time. And so, and then for being fired over the shot, that put a stigma on me to where I would call around to mental health specialists and nobody would see me. Nobody wanted to see me because I was fired over the shot. And so, yeah. So
were the doctors that you were calling direct affiliates of the city? Were they the city doctors? But still, they wouldn't.
Right. You know, because I could be faking it, right? So nobody wanted to see anybody that was fired over the shot because they thought you were trying to work the system, I'm sure. But I was not working the system. So at one point, like in late December, I was talking to one of our union guys that was involved in the medical aspects of our job. And he asked how I was doing, and I told him, man, I'm not good. So I said, nobody will see me. I can't even get this L&I thing going. So essentially I was forced onto time loss, right? This happened on duty. No time loss wasn't available for me anymore. So I was forced onto time loss, doing something I would trying like hell to avoid. And so I had to talk about it now. Like, that's the only thing I had. And so I was like, nobody will see me, so I can't even get this no time loss thing going. And so he's like, well, let me talk to the Seattle Fire Department doctor that does our physical exams. Maybe she could get it going for you. And so that's what he did, and she was willing to see me. So she wasn't a mental health specialist. She was just a general practitioner, but she was willing to see me. She was the only one. Yeah, so I started the process, and so I had the VA starting at the same time. Like literally February 11th is when the first available thing for me for the fire department got going, and when the VA got going. So it was like a full-time job going to all these things. And I did, they tried to put me on SSRIs. That went high and to the right. Like that did not go well. And then, I did EMDR.
Didn't go well in the sense that you didn't react to them well?
I reacted violently at night. Like at least one, if not 3 times, coming out of bed, kicking and screaming. And they're like, well, it takes a while to get in your body. You need to give it a month try. And so, so I wouldn't injure her. I went and slept in my son's bed because he was away at school. And every night, kicking and screaming and punching. I don't know if I was a victim. I don't know if I was the aggressor. I have no idea. But it was violent. So after a month, I'm like, hey, I have to get off of this stuff. And then, so I did the EMDR, I did prolonged exposure, like everything that they had for months and months and months. And like everything that they had that was the standard stuff either didn't work or it made it worse. And so I was called the doctor, the fire department doctor, out of a panic after one of my treatments. I'm like, this isn't working. And she's like, well, so one, we need to create a plan for you, a call plan, so you don't kill yourself. And so these are the people you need to call in order here. These are all the emergency phone numbers you can call. And then she's like, and I can't prescribe this to you, but here's a phone number I want to call. And it's these 2 people here run this, what they call the MAPS program. It's with psychedelic medicine in conjunction with talk therapy. And it's been studied through Johns Hopkins University. It's been working with veterans and first responders. It's been very helpful. So I recommend you do this. Here's their phone number. That's all I can give you.
A little birdie gave me this number.
Yeah. And so I was kind of hesitant. I was afraid at first to call it. But then I did because that's all I had. And so that it was with MDMA they started me out with. And then they put me on some other medicines, but
I'm assuming, or did you not know anybody else who had gone through, personally, who had gone through the treatment?
No. I mean, I think I had heard by that point that, that Vet Solutions program with Ibogaine and 5-MeO-DMT was going on and all that kind of stuff. So I didn't know anybody personally who had been through that at the time, but I knew what was going on. Yeah, like I said, it's like once a month for 3 months, and they're like 4-hour-long sessions. And that was the first time that I ever felt connection to anything in a long time. So, yeah, that's what that gave me, was connection. And so like it felt so good that it, not even the medicine day, like afterwards for like 2 days, like you felt whole. Like you were connected to yourself, you're connected to your family again, you're connected to your surroundings. And so all I wanted to do was hold my wife's hand and walk. That's all I wanted to do. Like nobody really explained to me, like, you know, those days afterwards, that's your time to find healthy habits, like to integrate, to meditate, to breath work, to do all this other stuff, right? Read Eckhart Tolle books and like change your mind type stuff. And so after the first one, like the 2 days or the kind of the euphoria feeling kind of faded. And I'm just like, I'm broken. And, you know, I started going down the hole again. And they're like, just wait. This is a process. And so I was like, okay. And so after the second one, I started doing like real integration stuff, meditating, reading Eckhart Tolle books. And so by that point, it at least gave me a tool to say, to where I could be on my couch and my mind's going high and to the right. I at least had a tool to say, hey man, that's not real. The reality is you're sitting on your couch watching TV and you're okay. That's what's going on right now. That's what's real. All that other stuff. So I had a tool in my bag to combat what was going on in my head. And so it was a relief. And that was the first relief that I had gotten in, I can't even tell you how long. And so, but I knew like the medicine was speaking to me, like, we've got some more stuff to show you. And I was like, all right. And so I, through Seal Future Foundation, I called them. I said, hey man, this is me. I want to go do this program with the Ibogaine and 5-MeO-DMT, but I don't think I qualify because I'm not a combat veteran. And they're like, hey, we got it. Don't worry. We're going to take care of you. Because I kind of told them the whole story. And so I filled out the application. It got approved. And thank goodness. And yeah, so this was probably September that it got approved, and like late September. And I had put on my application, like, if anybody drops out, I'm available to go tomorrow. And so, like, so when it first got approved, they're like, we have something for January 2nd for you. And so I'm like, okay, I can wait.
Because in theory, they want you to, I'll use the term detox from a lot of things in your system before going down, correct?
Uh-huh.
Like caffeine and a lot.
No, not necessarily. Mostly like SSRIs, stuff that's going to block the pathways that the medicine needs to go do its work. So it's mostly like SSRIs and stuff like that. But no, you can go down there a full-blown drug addict and you're going to be changed. So I was not on any drugs at that time, but I November 1st, I think they gave me a call like, hey man, we have something open up on November 4th or something like that. Like I had days, but they do like prep, you know, you do online calls as preparation, like to kind of prepare you. But because I had already been down the medicine road a little bit, like I was kind of already prepared. And so I had already been on 5-MeO DMT one time at that point. And so I was prepared. Plus, when you're jumping out of an airplane, you have to trust that your equipment's going to work, right? You don't make that leap without putting some faith into. So I had that kind of trust going into every medicine I ever did. Like, all right, take me. So I was good with it, man. I think that's why they took me down so many different medicine paths, because I did it. Like, I trusted the medicine. I didn't fight it. And so,
what is the grind? It's not just a routine, but the decision we make to wake up, give everything we've got, then find a way to go further. Grind, spelt GRND, is more than a brand. It's a movement, an emotion we all feel connected to as we work daily to pursue our goals and support each other. Founded by a former Army Ranger, Grind Activewear has a clear mission: to give 100% and then some more. In sport, fitness, and in life. Functional, high-quality performance wear that's rooted in American culture. Because you demand gear that outworks the rest. Whether you're on the field, in the gym, or building your own lane, Grind is for those who refuse to settle. Go check out the Grind Collective. That's the grndcollective.com and tap into something bigger than clothing. And while you're there, use the promo code TRANSITION15 to get 15% off your purchase.
So anyhow, I get down there, and a couple days later, and it's a whole process. Like, you do a sweat lodge, and you do all this meditation practices and breath work practices, and so they don't just like hit you with the medicine immediately. And so they, like, it's a process to be on the Ibogaine. Ibogaine lasts all night. It like breaks your brain all the way down. And so, like, you can barely even walk when you're, like, they have to help you into bed. And so, like, I was like the first one through the whole process. And so they put me in bed first, and then you just kind of like, it takes days of recovery. Like, you're sweating it out. Something happens. I don't know what. Because Ibogaine isn't like super psychedelic. Like, the very end of it was psychedelic. Like, it's mostly like audio psychedelic type stuff, but you are definitely going through the pages of your life. And a lot of times you're just like, whoa, slow down. I need to process this, but it's processing, and it's processing at a rapid pace. And so, it's an all-nighter.
Now, do you, I'll call it a preload. Do you preload with any type of discussion with the representative or anything to kind of put your brain or your mind in the right, on the path?
Yeah, man. They have you watch videos of people that have done it before, and they talk to you constantly about, like, this is what's going to happen, so you're prepared. I mean,
not in the sense of prepared for what to expect, but in the sense of dialing in your mind in this to, all right, here's the journey that we're going on. Mm-hmm. Kind of get your mind focused on your journey, if that makes sense. Or will you just...
I don't know. Like, yes, like they want you to go in there with some kind of an intention, right? So that's what the word they use. And my intention was always, I'm here to learn. That's always my intention. Every medicine I go into, that's my intention, is like, show me. So that's how I went into that. I trusted. I knew, by that point I had known people that have been through it, and it's literally like unplugging the computer for 30 seconds, waiting, and then plugging it back in. That's what it is. And the beautiful part about the Ibogaine and 5-MeO combo is every medicine has like an afterglow to it for a couple of days. Well, this combo of Ibogaine and 5-MeO DMT is like months, like 6 months. Like, okay, we're going to create some healthy habits now. and you get that opportunity. Because like, I'll just tell you, I've been on heavier medicines than even 5-MeO-DMT, but it was necessary for me to do that.
I've talked to people who've gone down for the treatment, and they've said that there's a clarity that they came out of it with, almost to the point that they are certain they probably don't ever need to go down to do it again.
No, and like I said, so, psychedelic medicines always have their own little flavor. And so each one is an experience, and they're different experiences. And, I've been on 5-MeO-DMT 3 times. Like the last time I did it was what I needed to see. Like the medicine just lets you know, we got more for you. And then at the point they're like, okay, we're done. And so, yeah, so I'll just tell you, like 5-MeO-DMT, you at least have a string to hang on to. Like you're going through the death process, right? And you're going up to heaven and you're going to see God. That's what happens. And that's what happens in your body, because your body has DMT in it. And, apparently when you die, it's a DMT release and you go through this experience. Well, so this is what, like 5-MeO-DMT, like, okay, you want to die? This is it. Kind of, I guess. But on 5-MeO-DMT, you're like, at least I have a string to hang on to, because I'm no longer here. Like everything in your ego, everything in the ego world is gonzo, everything. So, but at least you're like a light energy. You're something. You're just not here anymore. And you go up to heaven. And, so I was in front of God for a little bit, and then he sent me into this big gray zone that, what I perceive as like this, this field of connection where everything's connected. It's like an energy field that everything alive on this earth, trees, everything is connected in this field. And I got to see it. And like divine love, like there's no words for it, but you feel that. But when you go up to that field of connection, it's even more intense, because you're connected to everything all at one time. And I was just like, oh. So, that's quote unquote ego death, right? That's what they say. But you still had a string to hold on to. And so I don't want to say like, because I went easy into it. I didn't fight the medicine. There are dudes that fight it like with their life, because they're going. You go. So there are dudes that are bouncing off the walls. You hear it. But I just relaxed into it. And so, so I don't want to say like I kind of cheated it, like, because I had a string to hold on to. So I wasn't afraid. Like I didn't really have like ego death, like you're gone. So a friend of mine, without going into it, so I was on another medicine that was made, I believe, for me. And anyhow, and it was another like DMT type substance. And, but it was like, I expected one thing, because there's a difference between NN-DMT and 5-MeO-DMT. They're 2 different molecules. So I expected a NN-DMT experience, and I did not get that. And it took me immediately. And like, I was gone. I had no string to hang on to. And so not externally, but internally, I started to panic a little bit, because I'm like, oh shit, I am dead. So I started to panic, and the medicine like stopped me mid-flight, and they're just like, hey, relax and we'll show you the love. The medicine spoke to me, and I was just like, okay. So I relaxed. I started going again, and I started to panic again, internally again. And I'm just like, oh shit, I am dead for real. And the medicine stopped me, and it's like, hey man, relax and we'll show you the love. And so like I had to tell myself, okay, I'm dead and it's okay. And then opened up into the most, like, even above 5-MeO DMT divine love. This was just like boom. I was like, oh, okay. Yeah, that was it. I haven't done any medicines that were like took me into those places since then, because I don't need it. Like the medicine, like, there you go, young man, go forth.
And when you're under the medication, it's all internal. I know you have monitors who are there in the room with you, but are you getting any external type stimulus?
No, like on Ibogaine, yes. Not 5-MeO. You're gone. There is nothing in this world. You're no longer in this world. You're in the transition phase from this life to the next. So, yeah, so you get to kind of see that transition. But when I did that medicine that actually took me out, I was in the middle of the woods. I wasn't in a clinic. Yeah. So the medicine knew what I needed. Like, okay, you're going to cheat this? Here you go. But I needed it, right? And so that was like...
Was that your only experience while you were under a treatment of ever trying to resist the medication?
That was the first time I ever said I'm dead and it's okay. Because this life on earth isn't it. It's not it. There's a transition. I don't believe that we lose our consciousness when we go. I don't believe that anymore. So the whole ego of this is who I am, this is what I'm doing here, this is what I was put on earth to do, it's all made up. You could perceive, rather than thinking you're just an empty vessel that shit just happens to, no, you are the vessel and you have the power. And so you could perceive anything however you want to perceive it. Anything. And so I was telling, back when I thought I was a tough guy and I had an ego, I'd tell everybody, like, I'm just like a Mark I motto Gen Xer, right? I've got a huge ego and a shitty attitude. Like, that was me. And that was me. Like, and I still feel it. Like, I'm not that guy no more, but like, I still feel it in my heart. So just like an example. So when we're driving down here, we had just come across the Nevada-California border, right? And so like almost immediately we get in back of this white pickup truck. And this guy's got his license plate on, but it's turned backwards with the silver part facing out. And one, you can barely read it. And two, if you were to read it, you would have to read it backwards. So technically he's compliant, right? He's got his license plate on, but he's going to make it as hard on you as possible. That's me. Like, that stuff speaks to my heart. That's who I am.
So you're a full-on sovereign citizen?
I'll tell you. So I've made my own world. I come into this world when I want to, and I don't come into this world when I want to. So, like, to me, like, that's almost as good as paying your property taxes with bags of pennies. Like, I'm compliant, but I'm going to make it as hard on you as I can because I don't like you. That's me. And that's kind of how I've always been. But like, so, but, you know, because this world was no longer tenable for me, I had to go somewhere, right? I'm built to survive. And I'm not an empty vessel that shit just happens to. Like, I have the power. And so, so let me just frame this for you. So, and this is not like kooky psychedelic stuff. This is physics, like Nobel Prize winning physics. Have you ever heard of the double split test? Okay. So basically they had a room, right? A box, essentially. And they have another wall separating the box right in the middle. And in this separating wall, they put two like thin slits in the wall. And on one end of the wall was an electron gun, and the other end of the wall was the target wall, right? So they first did this experiment, I think, in the 80s, and they replicated it back in like around 2017 or something like that. But I think the expectation of this experiment was we're going to shoot this electron gun at the slits in the wall. It's going to split the electrons and hit the target wall, and it's going to create a mirrored pattern on the target wall. So because they're shooting an electron gun, they had to seal it up, and they boogie out of there, and they shoot the gun, open up the door, expecting to see this mirrored pattern. And it wasn't even that. It was just collapsing sound waves. That's all it was. They're like, what? So they're like, we have to see what's going on. So they put a wire feed in there, and they're watching what's happened next time. So they shoot the electron gun, it goes through the split, and it makes this pattern, mirrored pattern, exactly what they were expecting. And then they take the camera out, shoot it again, sound waves, collapsing sound waves. So their conclusion, which they didn't expect, was humans have to observe to make anything real. We make it up as we go. This is proved through physics. So, like, when you are walking through your house, you've already perceived all this. You've already built it. So your brain is just kind of on a loop. That's why this is your comfort zone, right? When you go somewhere new, that's kind of why it's more exciting, because you're actually, now you got preconceived ideas, but you're building it as you go. Otherwise, it's just collapsing sound waves.
I have heard the explanation that there is the possibility we just exist in a giant simulation.
Yeah. It's like, essentially, you're wearing a AV headset, but instead of somebody else building the program, you're building it as you go. That's what it is. So my question was like, all right, I kind of know what heaven is. Like, heaven is, love and bliss. So if we came from heaven and we're going back to love, so if you just stayed in heaven, how would you ever evolve from love and bliss? How would you ever know anything different?
In theory, you wouldn't.
You would not. So why not create a fake world, send you down here, take away your memory of where you came from, and give you a finite mind to work with. You can only use like 10% of your brain, so you have to build this ego where you think this is it, right? The only way to experience stuff, for you to actually experience the feelings, is for you to totally believe it. This is me. This is what I'm doing here. This is what God put me on earth to do. Oh, and it hurt me, right? No, you're just experiencing what you're supposed to experience. You're down here evolving. And you are the vessel. So you could perceive things as hurting you, and this is it. Or you could say, oh, it's an experience. I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. So that's how I perceive stuff now. Like, I don't think I'm a victim of anything. I'm just down here doing what I'm supposed to be doing. And guess what? I get to make it up as I go. Yeah. So that's kind of like the world set aside from ego, this fake ego world. I just have, that's essentially how I do it. It makes sense?
It makes perfect sense. And in my mind, what I'm kind of thinking though is you use the analogy of heaven, down, back up. We've been shipped off to experience something, to
evolve,
for whatever reason, evolve to make us appreciate heaven more, or whatever the purpose is. But what if we didn't actually go down? What if we are all sitting in a room right now with a bunch of VR goggles, and this is just our movie that we're watching from up in heaven?
That could be. But how else would you actually know how pain feels? How else would you know how trauma feels? How else any of the feelings?
It goes back to that whole simulation thing, because
so you have to totally buy into this for it to feel the feels, right? You have to totally buy into, this is me. Like, because think about it, like when you're born, you're given a first, middle name, you're given a social security, like, so your ego is built from the word go. And this is the school I went to. This is the sports I played. This is what I did in the military. So like all this stuff is saying, this is me, 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 right? Well, we're all just human. At some point, sometimes, stuff happens where it breaks you. So if you totally buy into the whole ego thing of this, right? Like I did, obviously, like, how come I can't function in the spaces I'm supposed to be functioning in now? Like it totally when I say all of my armor fell off, like it did all at once. And I was naked and afraid, like in a war zone in my head, right? Like all my armor is gone. I'm injured, but at least I have my dudes around me, right? That's what I had. And I had a command staff that's supposed to be supporting me with medical and blah, blah, blah. Well, at some point, everybody abandoned me. They left me alone when I was on a battlefield to die, essentially, right? So this, at the end of the day, like to the government, I don't care how important you think you are, you're just another number on a payroll sheet. That's the reality of it. So that's not my world anymore. I do what I want.
You want validation that you're just a number on a spreadsheet. Get injured as a government employee, and you'll quickly see.
That's right.
That they talk about the family. They talk about we're there for you. At the end of the day, there's somebody in an office that is counting the beans, and you are a line on a spreadsheet, and you will become a point to where you are more cost effective for that organization to tell you go away than figuring out a way to keep you on their spreadsheet.
Yep. Well, and then on top of that, like I said, like it was a comfort blanket to at least have your dudes around you. And then like when I got fired, the vast majority of those dudes were just like, good luck, man. Like, really? I thought there was a brotherhood here. And like,
you were fired because you chose not to take the COVID vaccination from the Seattle Fire Department.
Right.
That was one of the compounding factors in your breakdown. Sure. That battle with the city.
I said, like, for me at that time, I was dealing with, I don't even know who I am. Right. I was on no time loss, but I'm having to go on time loss to at least take care of this city injury. I'm need help. And I said, so at the very minimum, instead of firing me now, can you wait till November 1st so I could at least get this L&I process going? So, because if you're fired on November 1st, you keep your medical benefits. And they're like, okay, so we'll fire you November 1st. So that's how that happened. I was actually supposed to be fired before that. So they allowed me to at least try and get the L&I process going. But again, nobody would see me. And so I couldn't even do that. And
for those listening, you and I made the decision not to discuss that component for a lot of reasons.
Yes.
I just wanted to bring it up because it was a factor. It was one of the pieces of that puzzle that led to your entire breakdown.
Dude, it took a situation that was admittedly untenable, and it turned it into, I have nothing. I don't want to be here anymore. So that was what came out of that. It made it even more untenable.
Now, I've said this to other people. I got to operate in a very safe bubble, I'll call it that, during COVID. The county that I live in and the county that I work in were not aggressive in their enforcement of the COVID standards.
Yeah.
If you didn't step outside with a mask, nobody was, swarming in to take you away. We were very fortunate that we live in proximity to an Indian reservation.
Yeah.
Their casino stayed open.
Yeah.
There were restaurants that we could go to for dinner.
Right.
The positive was because they did actually have a mask mandate, you couldn't smoke in the casino.
Right.
So it was great to walk through the casino.
For sure. Yeah.
So we lived in a very protective bubble.
Yep.
It was only when we left our county that we went, oh, wow, this is what other people have to deal with.
Right. Yeah.
So with that, I also say I took the COVID shot because of I didn't want to take anything from my family.
Yeah.
We had a trip planned to New York. Didn't want my other members of my family not to be able to do something because we didn't have the COVID shot.
Right.
So that's just me.
I mean, obviously, like.
Where I was leading that to, though, is you talked about how you lost connection with people during it.
Yeah.
And all I was going to say is just playing devil's advocate. You got into a situation where, in a weird way, there is ancillary toxicity.
Sure.
That they have to be mindful of themselves, their families, and their careers, is all I was saying.
100%. Go do, and again, that's what I'm saying, like, this brotherhood stuff that they talk about isn't necessarily there, right? And so it's at least it's like not even close to the team level. So, but again, like I said, I was in I had shit I had to take care of before I could even process that whole thing. But, like I said, like the way it all played out, I mean, again, this world was untenable, still is untenable for me. So I had to go somewhere. And by the grace of God, I was introduced into psychedelic medicine stuff that allowed me to see another thing. This ego thing, this fake ego world, I could come into it when I want to, and I don't have to if I don't want to. So that's just kind of how I just drive forward, right? I shoot, move, and communicate in whatever battle space I have in front of me. That's what I continue to do.
One of the things I was recently told, and it's one of those things where when someone says it and you kind of go, damn, never thought of it that way. But they're talking about those of us who have operated in an environment where there's a lot of shooting involved. Those are many concussions leading to TBI.
Sure.
Especially in our environments of where you're firing in close proximity to another person, over the shoulder, a lot of times, unsuppressed.
Yep.
Every one of those rounds is a mini concussion.
Well, again, like we had talked about earlier, like like, I agreed to do all this stuff. I don't consider myself a victim of anything. Like, I actually loved the SEAL teams. No matter what, I'd do it 1,000 times again. But yeah, like, that's the reality of even just getting to the proficiency of a special operator is you are going to be exposed to all this, right? You have to know how to shoulder fire rockets, breaching charges, your crashes in a house, like, and obviously me carrying the 60, and then, you know, helicopter crashes and short field landings and takeoffs and parachute jumps and
fast rope with a hard impact.
yes. And so that is all jarring to your brain, right? And so what comes out of it is okay, but this is just the reality of it. And so, like, if you need these dudes, do something for them afterwards that's real, that can really heal them. And like Stanford University is doing a study with Vet Solutions, and what they do there, like Vet Solutions isn't like the psychedelic medicine place. They just provide grants. They're a grant organization. But if you need this, they help you get there. So they're working with Ambio Life Sciences down in Mexico now. It's already been like approved for clinical trials in Texas, and in Mississippi it's going, North Carolina. Like, it's working its way through the process. Hopefully eventually get into the VA. But
we just need to get enough distance and enough time as far as administrators, government people who still don't have the negative connotation of the psychedelics from the 60s.
For sure. Well, and then, you know, we're the generation like, this is your brain on drugs.
Yeah.
But most psychedelic medicines come from the natural world. Like, I've been on opioids. I've been addicted. I've probably gone through 12 withdrawals, if not more, from opioids. So I know what drugs do to you. That is not what psychedelic medicine does to you. Like, I can go through an experience and not even think about it for months. And the only reason it would pass through my brain is like, oh, I need some connection back. Like, that's like, hey, time to go experience something again. So it's not, at least the medicines that I've done, it's not addictive. It's just like, I got to show you something, and yeah, you're here for an experience. All part of the experience.
I always think back, I don't know if you've ever seen it, there's an episode of Twilight Zone. And it's a man and a woman, and they pull into this town. Uh-huh. There's nobody around. But the entire time they're there, they keep hearing a little girl laughing.
Right.
They're looking all over for it, and they can't find it. And then as the episode progresses, finally, I think it's the woman happens to go, she wants to go look behind a bush, and she goes to grab the bush and tips it over and realizes that it's just a fake tree or bush. Yeah. And then the episode closes, right, and it pans out, and it's this giant maze type right, table game. And this little girl, that's her toys that she's playing with.
Yep. Well, so like the Truman Show, right? Okay. I mean, I think that show kind of changed. Like, if you listen to Jim Carrey talk nowadays, like, he's essentially in the spaces I'm in. And I think that was probably like what sent him down that path was the Truman Show. Like, not real, dude. Like, you could perceive anything however you want to perceive them. You have that power. So, yeah, again, like, to me, everything is kind of just an experience. Good, bad, or otherwise, it's just an experience. I don't internalize it. I don't think this is it. I think, you know, we're going to transition to somewhere else. Like, this is just part of the story, right? Just like when you were in your mom's stomach. You had a mouth, you had arms and legs, but you were in her womb, right? And you had a cord attached to you that gave you everything you needed. Like, you didn't really need your arms. You didn't really need your legs. You didn't really have any idea what this mouth was for. until you transition to something else, right? You came into this world like, oh, I need to eat and talk, and I'm no longer attached to mom. Mom was God, right? You could hear mom in there. That's all you knew. You couldn't even imagine coming into this world, but you do. And so you go from one transition to the next. And, you know, like I said, just through some physics stuff and whatever, I just think that we're just energy, a vibration, right? This is just some organic matter that you have to navigate this experience. So, yeah, man, I think it just is a whole beautiful story. Yeah.
From the experience aspect, what's on the future horizon for you?
Just to be like a positive role model for this next generation, right? Kids still come ask me about SEAL team stuff. Like, I help some of them, you know, train and give them some ideas and kind of like what I thought about it. And I got, you know, there's also kids that just want to go in the Navy, and I'm willing to go with them to the recruiter and kind of help them out in that regard. And even on the fire side, like, I still have a lot of contacts. And so if I can't answer a question, right? So one thing that happened in my experience with the MAPS program with the MDMA. So that's how that thing progressed. Like, the first session was just like, all right, tell me what hurt you. So you're like, bah, bah, bah. And then the second part is, all right, so what's happening now? How are you going to correct this now? Right? I'm reading Eckhart Tolle. I'm learning how to meditate, blah, blah, blah. I'm doing all this stuff. Well, the last part is like, what's next? You're just like, man, I don't have any idea. Because in your head, like, I still got to carry this sword and shield, right? That's still in your head. And that was one thing that stuck with me out of that was it had a male and a female in there just to have some male and female presence in the session. And the gal that was in there, her husband was a fireman for Seattle. She was a nurse. And he ended up dying of cancer at some point. And through the grieving process, she met this other guy that brought her into the psychedelic medicine world to kind of, you know, quote unquote, heal her. I don't even delve into the healing thing because, like we discussed, I don't think there's anything to heal from. You're just having an experience. And that's what you're supposed to be doing. So, yeah, so the last session, they're asking me, like, what comes next? And I'm like, man, I have no idea. I haven't even thought of that. And you don't. Like, your whole life, you've been carrying this sword and shield, right? I got to protect the public from mayhem. I got to protect my family. And she's like, at one point, she's like, hey, it's okay. Has anybody ever told you it's okay to drop that sword and shield? I'm just like, what? Like, I hadn't even thought about it. Like, so it's okay to drop the sword and shield? She's like, yes. You're in a transition, man. Now you're going from the warrior to the tribal elder. you like, who is going to teach this next generation how to do what you've done? If you die, who's going to teach these kids how to do what you did? We need you. As bad as the shit you did was, we have to have people like you. So, like, who's going to teach the next generation if you just die and go away before you're supposed to? Like, it's not going to be the bank teller. It's not going to be the guy in the office. They have no idea what you've done, and they don't have no idea how you did it. So you have to be here for the next generation. And I was like, holy shit, you're right. Yeah. So that's who I am now. Tribal elder.
The thing I would say that comes from our professions is, and you talked about it, the guy that had been out for 10 years,
Yeah.
the chief that took his life. There's so many of us, using your analogy of the sword and shield. Nobody gave you the sword and shield.
Mm-mm.
You picked it up on your own.
100%.
So the inability to set it down is also all on you.
For sure. 100%.
And so many men and women from our communities, they lack the ability when it's time to walk outside the door to leave the shield and the sword at the door. I don't know why.
It's ego. Man.
We just carry it with
Yes.
us. And the analogy that I use is a plumber.
Uh-huh.
When a plumber's not working,
Yep.
they're not walking around with a monkey wrench.
No.
And the last thing they ever want to talk about is a clogged toilet.
Right.
But
For
you
sure.
get us off duty.
Right.
And all we want to talk about is the work that we do.
Yes. Yeah. It's, again, it's, and you know this, it's all ego. Mm-hmm. And, we have the ability we're not an empty vessel, right? This doesn't define you. You're already defined. You're actually the divine vessel. And so you get to choose what's next. And so I obviously, I went down that road. It took me down. And, but yeah, I am not in that space any longer. It's not like I'm like, oh, I don't want to talk about it, or like, I just don't consider it either way. I'm happy to talk about it. I'm happy to not talk about it.
It doesn't define you anymore.
No, it doesn't hurt me anymore. Like,
well, it's not your identity, is what I mean.
Not even close. Right. I, to me, I am, this is just a meat suit to get me from point A to point B. These bones give me some rigidity, right? But I'm an energy and a vibration.
There's the transition. You went from being a meat shield to a meat suit.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So I just am, I just have the blessing of being able to come into this world when I need to, just to kind of, you got to go to the bank sometimes. You got to go to the grocery store. So I'm able to come in and out of here when I want to. And I kind of just have my own world that I operate on otherwise. Mm-hmm.
It's cool that you're still connected through your son to the Navy. He's continuing on the family tradition.
My daughter is too. She's Navy ROTC.
I wish them both the best.
I appreciate it.
I appreciate you taking your time to share your story, and I wish you all the best going forward.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Happy to hopefully it helps somebody.
I'm sure it will.
Yeah.
Thank you again.
Easy days.